So to do a quick review, this is the conversation between Uddhava and Vidura, and it's actually a synopsis of Uddhava's remembrances of the Lord. When Vidura first met him, he asked about so many of their different common acquaintances, but in his reply, Uddhava is focusing specifically on the entire life of the Lord. And we know from previous descriptions in other places that at one time, the earth was so overburdened by demoniac people and powerful military kings that she couldn't deal with the difficulties. And she actually went to the supreme demigod in this universe, the creator of the universe, Lord Brahma, and prayed to him and cried to him for help. Then he, along with the other demigods, went to the ocean of milk and prayed to the Supreme Lord that he assist them for this difficulty. And indeed, the Lord explained to them that he would advent and that they, the demigods, should also advent on earth in the family of the Yadus. And in this way, assist him in his pastimes when he actually personally advented on earth. So now, to do a fast forward, after recollecting all these different events of the Lord's life, Uddhava has come to the point where he's describing the beginning of the Lord's closing his pastimes. Just as there were so many events that took place to prelude the advent of the Lord, similarly, now there's a whole unwinding of all those different steps in which that were taken to establish his presence. So now I'll switch to the texts and we'll read from there. So this is, again, as we mentioned last week, a combination of 2 months reviews. This is November, lesson 9, and December, lesson 1. So we'll go back and we'll, actually, if you, as I mentioned in the opening letter or email about this, about lesson 9 and lesson 1, the next chapter, Vidura approaches Maitreya, actually only has a little bit about that event with Vidura approaching Maitreya at the very end of the chapter. Most of the chapter involves a description of the Lord's, again, disappearance and how that's organized. So it blends very nicely with this chapter 9, which we'll start now, lesson 9. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 3, Text 14. After the battle of Kurukshetra, the Lord considered, the abatement of the earth's great burden, 18 Akshohinis, has now been effected with the help of Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna, and Bhima. But what is this? There is still a great strength of the Yadu dynasty, born of myself, which may be a more unbearable burden. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The entire earth became overburdened due to dharma glani, or irregular discharge of the Lord's desire. The Lord appears on the earth to curb the increase of miscreants and not to increase the population, as is wrongly put forward by the mundane economist. When Lord Krishna appeared, there had been a sufficient increase in miscreants who had violated the desire of the Lord. The material creation is meant for fulfilling the desire of the Lord, and his desire is that the conditioned souls who are unfit to enter into the kingdom of God have a chance to improve their conditions for entering. The entire process of cosmic arrangement is intended just to give a chance to the conditioned souls to enter the kingdom of God. And there is an adequate arrangement for their maintenance by the nature of the Lord. Next, Samapriya.
Okay, next will be Vaishnavi, if you'd like to continue reading. But before we do, I just heard Srila Prabhupada say in a lecture that actually in this world, there are more demoniac people than godly people. So it's a very small amount of people who are cultivating this kind of Krishna consciousness. And that goes along with this purport.
I don't know if Vaishnavi is with us. You'll have to ask her.
Vaishnavi, you there? Vaishnavi, I cannot read today, sorry. Okay, Mandantara, would you like to read? Unmute, darling. Thank you.
There are two kinds of burdens. There is a burden of the beast and the burden of love. The burden of the beast is unbearable, but the burden of love is a source of pleasure. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti describes the burden of love very practically. He says that the burden of the husband on the young wife, the burden of the child on the lap of the mother, and the burden of wealth on the businessman, although actually burdens from the viewpoint of heaviness are sources of pleasure. And in the absence of such burdensome objects, one may feel the burden of separation, which is heavier to bear than the actual burden of love. When Lord Krishna referred to the burden of the Yadu dynasty on the earth, he referred to something different from the burden of the beast. The large number of family members born of Lord Krishna counted to some millions and were certainly a great increase in the population of the earth. But because all of them were expansions of the Lord himself, by his transcendental plenary expansions, they were a source of great pleasure for the earth. When the Lord referred to them in connection with the burden on the earth, he had in mind their imminent disappearance from the earth. All the members of the family of Lord Krishna were incarnations of different demigods, and they were to disappear from the surface of the earth along with the Lord. When he referred to the unbearable heaviness on the earth in connection with the Yadu dynasty, he was referring to the burden of their separation.
Okay. Can you say something about that?
Actually, the purport that we just covered in chapter 4 did a nice rendition of that in terms of explaining that they were actually demigods and how Krishna wanted to have them return to their different abodes, heavenly, where they were.
He's closing up his pastimes, so he's arranging that everyone return to their proper situation before his incarnation. Thank you, Mandantara. Yes.
I just wanted to say that when I read this, because I had always remembered it as Prabhupada describing that the Yadavas were a great burden on the earth because of their immense strength and that nobody else could destroy them. So Krishna had to take care of it before he left. So this was, so I had forgotten about this part, but it's describing it as in a loving way that, a separation, a burden of separation for the earth. But I guess the other thing was there as well.
Yeah, the other thing, well, Prabhupada talks about this, so let's go with this for now. Don't you think? And that's it. I also was delighted actually when I read that part. Everything that Krishna does is to increase our loving relationship with him. So this is aside from being a burden on the earth, because their service was no longer needed at that point.
I love the analogies that he gave. What were they? The burden of the husband on the young wife. A young wife's, her husband's a burden. She has to cook for him. She has to clean for him, but she's newly married. She loves him. She wants to do whatever those chores are. She actually enjoys that burden. The burden of a child on the lap of a mother. The mother always has to deal with the baby in so many different ways. But because she loves him or her, the mother is in complete joy in dealing with all these different things to care for the baby. And certainly the burden of wealth on a businessman, it's there. He has to deal with so many taxes and so many accounts and so many different things, but that wealth is what he's actually working for, and therefore the burden is joyous for him. So in the same way, although all these different entities had come and were interacting with the Lord in Dwarka and in the Yadu dynasty, for him it was a source of great pleasure. And now having them not going to have that association is considered a worse burden.
Yeah, it's something wonderful to think about. Everything about the Bhagavatam is wonderful. Thank you. Elizabeth, you want to read the next slide for us?
Yes, Mataji. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:315. When they quarrel among themselves, influenced by intoxication with their eyes red like copper because of drinking madhu, then only will they disappear. Otherwise, it will not be possible. On my disappearance, this incident will take place. The Lord and his associates appear and disappear by the will of the Lord. They are not subjected to the laws of material nature. No one was able to kill the family of the Lord, nor was there any possibility of their natural death by the laws of nature. The only means, therefore, for their disappearance was the make show of a fight amongst themselves, as if brawling in intoxication due to drinking. That so-called fighting would also take place by the will of the Lord. Otherwise, there would be no cause for their fighting. Just as Arjuna was made to be illusioned by family affection, and thus the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, so the Yadu dynasty was made to be intoxicated by the will of the Lord and nothing more. The devotees and associates of the Lord are completely surrendered souls. Thus, they are transcendental instruments in the hands of the Lord and can be used in any way the Lord desires. The pure devotees also enjoy such pastimes of the Lord because they want to see him happy. Devotees of the Lord never assert independent individuality. On the contrary, they utilize their individuality in pursuit of the desires of the Lord, and this cooperation of the devotees with the Lord makes a perfect scene of the Lord's pastimes.
So this answers the question. This purport answers what Madhurya Leela brought up. Do you see that? Madhurya? Yeah, okay. All right, so shall we go on? Elizabeth, you're okay with that? You understand that? The last sentence, by his power of omnipresence. Oh, I think it changed. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go on with Tisha.
Thank you, Mataji. Okay. Lord Sri Krishna, thus thinking to himself, established Maharaj Yudhisthira in the position of supreme control of the world in order to show the ideal of administration on the path of piety. The embryo of Puru's descendant, begotten by the great hero Abhimanyu in the womb of Uttara, his wife, was burnt by the weapon of the son of Drona, but later he was again protected by the Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The particular living entity who was selected to be the descendant of Maharaj Puru, or the Pandavas, was not an ordinary living entity, and by the superior will of the Lord, he was destined to be the successor of Maharaj Yudhisthira. Therefore, when Ashvatthama destroyed the embryo of Maharaj Parikshit, the Lord, and by his own internal potency, entered into the womb of Uttara by his plenary portion, just to give audience to the would-be Maharaj Parikshit, who was in great danger. By his appearance within the womb, the Lord encouraged the child and gave him complete protection and a new body by his omnipotency. By his power of omnipresence, he was present both inside and outside of Uttara and other members of the Pandava family.
Okay. Pati, did you want people to comment on these things or?
If she has something to say, that would
Okay,
be nice.
Tisha, you have something to say about this?
Well, just from watching the Mahabharata so many times, I just love this part because the scene is so, it's just destitute, so many people have died in this war and everything is so destitute, but here you have this protection of Krishna protecting Uttara and Parikshit in the womb. And so from the movie, from all the drama, it's such a beautiful ideal that the Lord is protecting Uttara, the mom, from the inside and from the outside. And so the dynasty will continue by that protection. So
Right.
for me, that's
And-
just loving, it's like you can experience the love and connection with the whole idea of it.
Very good. Krishna's whole purpose was that battle of Kurukshetra, to eliminate the demoniac element from the earth and to put the proper king on the throne and make sure that his descendants would be there. So he established his duty, his mission was to establish religious principles. So that's and in doing so, he does it in all directions, even with mothers and children.
This morning during my meditation, I was also thinking that in this winding up process of Krishna ending his pastimes, he's also setting up the board for future conditioned souls so that they also have the proper opportunities. And by making Maharaj Parikshit the king, it's leading ultimately to the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's actually one of the steps in this whole grand event.
Yeah, to deliver the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam. Okay, thank you. Let's go on with Guruprasadam. Would you like to read something, Prabhu? Just a small one here.
Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.3.18. The Supreme Lord induced the son of Dharma to perform 3 horse sacrifice, and Maharaj Yudhishthira, constantly following Krishna, the personality of Godhead, protected and enjoyed the earth assisted by his younger brothers. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj Yudhishthira was installed on the throne of the earth as a representative of the Lord. The king is always expected to be the representative of the Lord. Perfect monarchy necessitates representation of the supreme will of the Lord. And Maharaj Yudhishthira was the ideal monarch of the supreme principle. Both the king and the subject were happy in the discharge of worldly duties, and thus protection of the citizens and enjoyment of natural life, with full cooperation of material nature, followed in the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira and his worldly descendants like Maharaj Parikshit.
Thank you. Do you want to say something about that, Guruprasadam?
It looks like everything is perfect when the king is like the right one.
Yeah, it does. This is ideal society that Prabhupada is presenting here, that the Bhagavatam is presenting. And even if we don't see it manifest in the world, it doesn't mean that within our own sphere, it won't manifest. So, as we said before, there's less devotees on the planet than there are demons. So, but that doesn't disturb our devotional activities. And also creates, it is our duty to manifest these things, to show the world. That's our preaching mission, to show the world how actually human life should be lived. Thank you, Guru Prasad. How about the next slide? Ian, would you like to read? Are you there? Saw you here. Ian, we'll wait 1 second for you to, there you are.
Can you hear me now?
No,
About now.
very
Can
little.
You,
Yeah,
can you hear me now?
yes,
Okay,
yes, thank you,
okay.
good.
Okay, 3.3.19.
Good.
Simultaneously, the personality of Godhead enjoyed life in the city of Dwarka, strictly in conformity with the Vedic customs of society. He was situated in detachment and knowledge, as rather enunciated by the Sankhya system of philosophy. My screen is a little bit small. I don't know if it's from your side or my side.
Your
Let
side.
me check. Okay, I don't know. Well, okay, I see what I can do. A little bit small. Okay, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Although Lord Shri Krishna is the supreme emperor of the entire creation, while he was on this earth, he never violated the principles of the Vedic injunctions because they are the guide for human life. Regulated human life according to the Vedic principles, which are based on a system of knowledge called Sankhya philosophy, is a real way of enjoyment of necessities of life. Without such knowledge, detachment and custom, the so-called human civilization is no more than an animal society of eat, drink, be merry, and enjoy. Lord was acting freely as he willed, yet by the practical example he taught not to lead a life which goes against the principles of detachment and knowledge.
Very good. Leave this slide for a moment. You see the first sentence of the purport. This whole purport, in fact, has to do with what we were just discussing. The Lord has a mission and he exhibits his high qualities. He doesn't change according to the desires of conditioned souls. He is here for a purpose and to display how human beings should act on this planet to achieve the goal of human life. So what do you think about that, Ian? Can you add something to that principle?
Or it's just that he said, regulated human life according to Vedic principles, which are based on a system of knowledge called Sankhya philosophy. And we know that in the Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila Dev spoke Sankhya philosophy to his mother, Devahuti. So it's mentioned here.
Yeah, this is very important that even though we see the world is not acting according to religious principles, that even strengthens our duty to maintain our own religious principles, act like devotees, and demonstrate to the world the proper use of human life. This little purport to me was very significant. Thank you, Ian. Madhurya Leela, would you like to read the next slide?
3.3.20. He was there in his transcendental body, the residence of the goddess of fortune, with his usual gentle and sweetly smiling face, his nectarian words, and his flawless character. Prabhupada's purport. In the previous verse, it is described that Lord Krishna, being situated in the truths of Sankhya philosophy, is detached from all kinds of matter. In the present verse, it is described that he is the residence of the goddess of fortune. These two things are not at all contradictory. Lord Krishna is detached from the variegatedness of the inferior nature, but he is in eternal blissful enjoyment of the spiritual nature or his internal potency. One who has a poor fund of knowledge cannot understand this distinction between the external and internal potencies. In Bhagavad Gita, the internal potency is described as the para prakriti. In the Vishnu Purana also, the internal potency of Vishnu is described as para shakti. The Lord is never detached from the association of para shakti. This para shakti and her manifestations are described in the Brahma Samhita 537 as Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavi Tabi. The Lord is eternally joyful and cognizant in the taste derived from such transcendental bliss. Negation of the variegatedness of the inferior energy does not necessitate negation of the positive transcendental bliss of the spiritual world. Therefore, the Lord's gentleness, his smile, his character, and everything related to him are all transcendental. Such manifestations of the internal potency are the reality, of which the material shadow is only a temporary representation, from which everyone with proper knowledge must be detached.
Oof. Okay, Midoriya, tell us about that last part. Negation of variegatedness of the inferior energy does not necessitate negation of the positive transcendental bliss. This is directly personalism.
Yeah,
so how can
it made
you
me think of Maharaj Ambarish, who was, and externally that he was engaged in his household activities and all that, but internally he was always serving Krishna different in the 9 ways of bhakti. So so you can and we enjoy Krishna consciousness. We have fun because we're dealing with the internal energy at that time. But then when we become focused on the external stuff, then that that joy is not there, and it's detached from his. It's like two tracks, but they can go on simultaneously.
Thank you. Elizabeth, can you add to that?
What point, Mataji, were you interested in specifically?
Well, how the just because one denies the external energy, that doesn't mean that we should deny the internal energy.
Mhm.
How the internal energy is actually on the spiritual platform, and that's what we must be dealing with now. But in the material world, everyone's absorbed in the external energy. So there is, and denying the external energy does not mean that you deny the internal energy. Can you understand that?
Yeah, I think that it goes back to like what I wrote on the forum for the first lesson. When Prabhu was like, just check this in relation to the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, that the mission why Krishna comes and comes to destroy the demons and to help protect the devotees. And like if we are going to live for our own sense gratification, then we are automatically in the group of the miscreants. And if we are going to engage in devotional service, then we are purifying ourselves by doing those activities. And then it's like a cycle that feeds itself. The more devotional service you do, the more devotional service that you want to do it better, you purify yourself more.
Good.
And then you're more in this eternal energy of the Lord.
Thank you. That was very sweet. Pati, did you want to add?
Yes, Chitamai also raised her hand.
Chaita, where are you? Yeah, speak. Did you have something to
Hare
say?
Krishna, good morning. I was thinking this purport is just outstanding because it talks about what is reality? What is the ultimate reality? What should we be really focused on? What should we really put our faith in? And this, it's epitomized by Krishna's gentleness, his smile, his character, and everything related to him. And if this is our reality, why are we spending so much energy worrying about the transcendental material world? To me, it's pivotal. This is the point. This is the point of doing our spiritual practices, is that we can become absorbed.
Right. And that's exactly the thing, that the material world we can reject, but that doesn't mean impersonalism. Prabhupada talks about a higher taste. So we develop a higher taste while we engage in devotional service, purifying ourselves, chanting the holy name, and then we have relationships. We have relationships on the spiritual platform, and we all want that. So thank you very much. That was a good answer.
Thank you for elaborating, Haribol.
Okay, so shall we go on to Premananda? Can you please read this?
Yes, Srimad Bhagavatam 3:21.
The Lord enjoyed his pastimes both in this world and in other worlds.
I'm losing you. I'm losing you. Wait, start again. I'm losing you. We didn't hear any of that. I
Sorry.
didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, very
Okay.
good.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:321. The Lord enjoyed his pastimes both in this world and in other worlds, higher planets, specifically in the association of the Yadu dynasty. At leisure hours offered by night, he enjoyed the friendship of conjugal love with women. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord enjoyed in this world with his pure devotees. Although he is the personality of Godhead and is transcendental to all material attachment, he nevertheless exhibited much attachment for his pure devotees on the earth, as well as for the demigods who engage in his service in the heavenly planets as powerful delegated directors in the management of all material activities. He displayed special attachment for his family members, the Yadus, as well as for his 16,000 wives, who had the opportunity to meet him in the leisure hours of night. All these attachments of the Lord are manifestations of his internal potency, of which the external potency is only a shadow representation.
That is very significant. This is a very intimate view to Krishna's internal potency and his pastimes. Do you have something to add to that, Premananda? Because this is teaching us something. What is it teaching us?
Yes, it goes back to the previous purport where
Wait, I can't hear you again, sweetie.
I'm not sure what's going on. I'm sorry. So I'm saying that it goes back to the previous purport where Srila Prabhupada talked about detachment. When you say detachment, it's just not detachment from everything.
You keep going in and out. We can't hear you.
I think there's something wrong with your microphone connection, Prabhu, because you're coming in and out, you speak and then it disappears.
Maybe
Okay,
turn off your picture. Oh, there you go. Go on.
Anything better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What I was saying is about detachment, that detachment doesn't mean we detach ourselves from everything and everyone. We get detached from the material things, but get attached to Krishna and his internal potency. And that's what is saying in this purport, that Krishna is detached from his material attachment, but is very much attached to his devotees, to the queens, to the internal potency. That's the meaning of, actually the meaning of detachment.
That is beautiful.
If
And
one-
this gives
if-
us some, go on, Pati.
If one asks, if Krishna shows this attachment to his family members, then what's wrong with me being attached to my family members who are also devotees of Krishna?
Well, I would say we are doing it for our own sense gratification, whether Krishna is doing this for his own pleasure as well as for the pleasure of his devotees. And the devotees are attached to Krishna for Krishna's pleasure.
I guess what I'm trying to drill down to is, what is the difference? It says here in the last line of the purport, all these attachments of the Lord are manifestations of his internal potencies, of which the external potency is only a shadow representation. What is the kernel of truth being manifest in that sentence that expands into the entire material world?
That it is temporary.
Very good. Exactly. But his pastimes also appear temporary. They manifest and as we're reading now, they end.
But they are eternal, right? They always go on.
Very good. That was explained in other purports, just like the sun. Although it ends in one place, the sun never disappears. When it goes down at night, it doesn't disappear into the ocean or down into the ground. It's just continuing around somewhere else.
And just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening, right?
But there are those who can see it. And if we hear from them, then we can learn about that which is beyond our perception.
Okay. Premananda, I'd like you to read the next slide also. Let's see if it won't break up.
Can I just say something
Yes,
too?
yes, Madhurya
regarding,
Leela. Sure.
well, so what the point that you're talking about is also, I was thinking, like I said, Ambrish Maharaj, or Ramananda Roy, or these other pure devotees who seemingly were very attached to their external, family situation, but then I think Prabhupada makes a comment, and externally, they looked very attached, but internally they were not. They were attached to the service of the Lord and the Lord. So, like even with Parikshit Maharaj, he did a great job of his managing his kingdom, but when he had to go, he was able to drop it and become renounced. So I think, I don't think, if your family is a devotee, that we have to, just because they're external energy, that we have to say that we shouldn't be attached to them in a sense. Attached, we know what that means by attachment, that you're not attached to the point of overly attached, but just to treat them as devotees. What do you think? Is
Well,
there a problem with that?
Pati, do you want to say something?
It expresses the subtlety of what is attachment and how deep it goes. And each individual has to evaluate. That's what self-discovery, self-realization has to do with, understanding ourselves and how attached we are to the different situations of this material world. It's a fine line. It's a big topic.
Yeah, I also agree that it is a fine line. And one thing that we can do is we can test ourselves. Just like we have the example of someone who is giving up smoking. He said, oh, I could give up smoking in a minute, and he says that every single day. So if your attachment is based on service to Krishna and the internal potency, if you weren't in that situation, test yourself. Think, if I wasn't in this situation, if things were different, would I feel lamentation? Would I have a material attachment? That we always have to test ourselves to see if our attachment to anything that we're doing is spiritual or material. This is a big one, right? So you might think that, they're devotees, I can be attached and this and that, and then we go down the road, and because we are conditioned souls, and so we might actually, our attachment might be contaminated. We are influenced by the material energy, so we also have to make sure we're doing our duty to please Krishna and pray to him to help us to become detached. Okay, what do you think? Is that all right, Madhurya?
Yeah, exactly. So we can do what we have to do in the
process.
material world, right? The external energy, but that doesn't have to be how we feel inside, right?
That's the point. That's the point.
So there's the external and duty and all that, but and that doesn't mean you can't show love. Like, you love your daughter, but that doesn't mean you don't love Krishna. And
well, sometimes I must admit that my love for my daughter gets a little bit on the material platform, so we have to check that. Anyway, we do the best we can. All glories to the holy name. Let's see if Premananda can read this slide for us.
Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam. You are muted. Can't hear you.
Chaitamayi wanted to ask a question. We'll go to her after you read this, okay? Read this.
Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:322. The Lord was thus engaged in household life for many, many years, but at last his detachment from ephemeral sex life was fully manifested. Purport: even though the Lord is never attached to any kind of material sex life, as the universal teacher, he remained a householder for many, many years, just to teach others how one should live in householder life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the word samajayata means fully exhibited. In all his activities while present on the earth, the Lord exhibited detachment. This was fully displayed when he wanted to teach by example that one should not remain attached to household life for all the days of one's life. One should naturally develop detachment as a matter of course. The Lord's detachment from household life does not indicate detachment from his eternal associates, the transcendental cohort themselves. But the Lord desired to end his so-called attachment to the three modes of material nature. He can never be detached from the service of his transcendental associates like Rukmini and other goddesses of fortune, as described in the Brahma Samhita 5.29, Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam.
Well, there's the answer right there. Very good. You have something else to say about that, Premananda?
No, I think this is very clear. Krishna is teaching us by example that we need not stay attached to material life or household life for many, many years. At some point, we have to just focus on Krishna, on chanting, on his holy name, on Shravanam, Kirtanam, and so on. So we should make devotional life our priority. I mean,
Yeah.
what I really liked about this purport is where it says that even the Lord is detached from the household life. He's never detached from his associates, right? So we should always try to be associates of Krishna, that we are always connected with Krishna.
And the way the Vedic culture works is that there are different stages of life. There's a student stage, there's a married stage, and there's the renounced stage, the detachment stage. So Krishna has it all covered. If we just follow the Vedic course, we'll achieve the goal of life. Okay.
You said Chaitamayi had a question previously?
Yeah, Chaitamayi, well, she's going to read now, if you would, and ask your question at the same time, Chaita. Unmute. I do not see Chaitamayi anymore. Where'd she go? Well, maybe she, let me see. No. Chaitamayi, are you there?
I think she dropped out.
I think she stopped for a minute there. Okay. All right, so we'll just have to go on then. Faye, can you please read the next slide?
Yes, Mataji. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.3.23. Every living entity is controlled by a supernatural force, and thus his sense enjoyment is also under the control of that supernatural force. No one, therefore, can put his faith in the Lord Krishna's transcendental sense activities, but one who has become a devotee of the Lord by rendering devotional service. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, no one can understand the transcendental birth and activities of the Lord. The same fact is herein corroborated. No one but one who is enlightened by the devotional service of the Lord can understand the difference between the Lord's activities and those of others who are controlled by the supernatural force. The sense enjoyment of all animals, men, and demigods within the purview of the material universe is controlled by the supernatural force called Prakriti or Devi Maya. No one is independent in obtaining sense of enjoyment, and everyone in this material world is after sense enjoyment. Persons who are themselves under the control of the supernatural power cannot believe that Lord Krishna is not under any control beyond himself in the matter of sense enjoyment. They cannot understand that his senses are transcendental. In the Brahma Samhita, the Lord's senses are described as omnipotent. It is with any sense he can perform the activities of other senses. One who has limited senses cannot believe that the Lord can eat by his transcendental power of hearing, and can perform the act of sex life simply by seeing. The controlled living entity cannot even dream of such sense activities in his conditional life, but simply by the activities of bhakti yoga, he can understand that the Lord and his activities are always transcendental. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 18.55, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyas kashmi tatvata, one cannot know even a fraction of the activities of the Lord if he is not a pure devotee of the Lord.
Wow. Oh my goodness, that's a wonderful purport. Can you describe it a little bit further, Faye? Not knowing any of the activities of the Lord unless one is a pure devotee. What does that mean?
I was thinking of the example, Mataji, of illusions and mirages and shimmering, ephemeral things. We're fooled by our senses. We don't see everything. We see a perverted reflection of what is really going on in the spiritual transcendental world. A pure devotee has the ability to perceive only a fraction of those wonderful things of the transcendental world. So, as such, I'm not a pure devotee. I have no ability to see these wonderful things, but I can accept very nicely that everything that Krishna does is transcendental and it's beautifully done. Whereas my activities are contaminated just as my senses are contaminated because I'm perceiving everything from the material world. The example of prasadam, offering one's food to the Lord, particularly in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, we're giving example after example how things are offered to the Lord, and the Lord is actually eating them, even though we can't see it. So certainly he can do activities with non-traditional sensory methods. I only know how to touch with my hands, but that doesn't mean that Krishna can't touch with all of his transcendental abilities. I'm material, I'm conditioned, I'm not transcendental, so how can I understand? I can only understand tiny bits that are passed to me from pure devotees about the transcendental world.
Good, very good. Now, there's another thing you can think about, the difference between Sat and Assad. Sat is eternal and Assad is temporary material nature. So, and that's another method how we can judge if we're attached to the material world or not. We are always trying to give up this Assad. The Assad has nothing to do with Krishna. It is that, well, of course, everything has something to do with Krishna because he is the supreme controller of everything, but it's a temporary material nature, and we're always being confronted. Is this Sat or Assad? So that's how we can get more in under the protection of Krishna. Thank you, Faye. That's very important. And also, you touched upon something about prasad. Pati, did you want to take advantage of that? Because we wanted to
No,
talk.
we'll discuss it at another time.
Well, okay.
It's coming up.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Faye. That was very enlightening. Chaitamayi, did you have a question? And you please read the next slide. Are you okay?
Yes. Thanks for your patience. Okay. Canto 3, chapter 3, verse 24. Once upon a time, great sages were made angry by the sporting activities of the princely ascendants of the Yadu and Bhoja dynasties. And thus, as desired by the Lord, the sages cursed them. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The associates of the Lord who were playing the part of princely descendants of the Yadu and Boja dynasties were not ordinary living entities. It is not possible that they could offend any saintly man or sage, nor could the sages, who are all pure devotees of the Lord, be influenced to anger by any of the sporting activities of the princes born in the holy dynasties of Yadu or Boja, wherein the Lord himself appeared as a descendant. The cursing of the princes by the sages was another transcendental pastime of the Lord to make a show of anger. The princes were cursed in order that one may know that even the descendants of the Lord, who could never be vanquished by any act of material nature, were subjected to the reactions of anger by great devotees of the Lord. One should therefore take great care and attention not to commit an offense at the feet of the devotee of the Lord.
That's pretty clear.
Wow.
Read the next slide. Read the next slide. Let's just go on now.
I just
and
wanted
read
to mention one thing. I'm really happy that Dhruva Maharaj put that picture of Shamba pretending to be a pregnant girl up there, because otherwise I wasn't really sure what sporting activities were being referred to. So thanks for giving me that cue.
They were being playful boys. They were playing with the wrong fire, but this was also Krishna's plan. All right, keep reading.
Beautiful. Okay. Bhagavatam 3:25 and 26. A few months passed, and then, bewildered by Krishna, all the descendants of Vrishni, Boja, and Andaka, who were the incarnations of demigods, went to Prabhasa, while those who were eternal devotees of the Lord did not leave but remained in Dvaraka. After arriving there, all of them took bath, and with the waters of this place of pilgrimage, they offered their respects to the forefathers, demigods, and great sages, and thus satisfied them. They gave cows to the brahmanas in royal charity.
Okay, go on.
Srila Prabhupada's purport. Amongst the devotees of the Lord, there are several divisions, mainly Nitya Siddhas and Sadhana Siddhas. The Nitya Siddha devotees never fall down to the region of the material atmosphere, even though they sometimes come onto the material plane to execute the mission of the Lord. The Sadhana Siddha devotees are chosen from the conditioned souls. Out of the sadhana devotees, there are mixed and pure devotees. The mixed devotees are sometimes enthusiastic about fruitive activities and are habituated to philosophical speculation. The pure devotees are free from all these mixtures and are completely absorbed in the service of the Lord, regardless of how and where they are situated. Pure devotees of the Lord are not enthusiastic to put aside their service to the Lord in order to go visit holy places of pilgrimage. The part of the princely order of the Yadu dynasty who went to Prabhasa performed all duties to be done in a place of pilgrimage and offered their pious activities to their forefathers and others. As a rule, every human being is indebted to God, the demigods, great sages, other living entities, people in general, forefathers, etc., for various contributions received from them. Thus, everyone is obliged to repay the debt of gratitude. The Yadus who went to the Prabhasa pilgrimage site performed their duties by distributing land, gold, and well-nourished cows in royal charity, as described in the following verse.
Whoa, that's huge. That is such a packed purport.
Such a lot going on there. Yeah, the distinction between Nitya Siddhas and Sadhana Siddhas. Oh, could I have that up on the screen? Because I'm getting cues from that. Thank you. So the Nitya cities never fall, and the sadhana cities are chosen. So
Chosen? What do you mean chosen?
they're chosen to partake in certain leelas in order to facilitate the Lord's pastimes. So that's
Go to the second paragraph. Go to the second paragraph of this purport. That's
there's,
what we want to discuss. Second
okay.
paragraph.
Okay,
The sadhana of devotees.
So Prabhupada describes that all of his devotees are pure, but I'm seeing that myself. I'm very much a mixed devotee because definitely I get into fruitive activity, and definitely I make up things as I go along. So this is something that we can aspire for, is to be completely absorbed in Krishna's service.
Prabhupada did not necessarily say all of his devotees are pure in the sense that there's no more purification needed.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
different levels of purity, you know. And
Okay.
this back to what Madhurya Leela brought up at the beginning, the attachment a sadhana siddha devotee has to the material world, that's mixed devotional service sometimes, you see.
Yeah.
So, but there is instruction here how we can become pure devotees by dedicating our consciousness to following the instructions of the spiritual master, because that's why we accept the spiritual master, to lead us on the path back to Godhead. Now, everything that Prabhupada writes in these purports is of great importance. In fact, when we try to make it a summary, I always, my husband says, you're putting in the whole purport. But it's every word is so essential. And I say it again, please read everything, even though it might not be present on this summary, but most of it is present. And because everything is so important, it's hard to eliminate anything. So,
Yes.
yeah, but also remember this, that we are not on the highest platform, but there's every possibility that we can progress by taking this whole thing very seriously, chanting and hearing. Shravanam Kirtanam.
I think if we can now, let's.
We have to hurry up.
No, we don't have to hurry up, but instead of having everybody speak on every single slide, I think what we should do now is read several slides and then have a discussion.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Chaita. Now, the next slide, Manvantara, could you read?
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 3, Text 27. The Brahmanas were not only given well-fed cows in charity, but also gold coins, beddings, clothing, animal skin seats, blankets, horses, elephants, girls, and sufficient land for maintenance. Purport. All these charities were meant for the Brahmanas, whose lives were devoted entirely to the welfare of society, both spiritually and materially. The Brahmanas were not giving their service as paid servants, but the society provided them with all necessities. It was arranged for some of the Brahmanas who were in difficulty for marriage to be given girls. The Brahmanas, therefore, had no economic problems. The Sastra kings and rich mercantile men would provide them with all that they needed, and in exchange, the Brahmanas were completely devoted to the elevation of society. That was the way of social cooperation between the different castes. When the Brahmana class or caste gradually became easygoing, being fed by the society, although they had no Brahminical qualifications, they degraded themselves into Brahma bandhus, or disqualified Brahmanas, and thus other members of society also gradually fell down from the social standard of progressive life. As described in Bhagavad Gita, the caste system is the creation of the Lord and is arranged according to the quality of work rendered to society, and not in terms of birthright, as falsely claimed in the present degraded society.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to have to go on now. If you have something to say, just keep it in mind and we'll talk about it after.
Actually, if somebody has a question or something they
Oh.
really want to say, then go ahead. I'm just saying you're calling
Okay.
on people and it's getting a little extended.
I know. I'm so sorry.
Can I mention something then on this one?
Yes,
Because
please.
I wanted to, because there was this thing I had about, because, you know, the Bhagavatam talks a lot about donation, giving money, that money is materialistic and so forth. But it's kind of like what in even now, right, in spiritual life, like when we give donations or benefit or things that benefit the Brahmana class, kind of like just take a temple president, for example, not that, you know, I'm speaking about anybody in particular. So like a temple president, for example, can be given money for services to because it benefits or supplies his needs or necessities, you know, his or her. It's not like an exchange of for services. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. Prabhupada said two things. He said that
Mhm.
if someone receives donations, not a farthing should be spent for anything but Krishna, right? So, I mean, it's okay to give donations to a saintly person, and the responsibility of that saintly person to use everything for Krishna. And actually, that's that whatever we give, because charity is always to be given. It says in the Bhagavad Gita, it should never be given up. But we give charity to the right person at the right time for furthering Krishna consciousness. So those are two important points. Thank you for bringing them up. That donations should be there because we're that's one of the injunctions of the Bhagavad Gita. And remember where we are in a spiritual life, always sacrifice should be there. Charity should be given. It's just that
But
yeah.
Sorry, but I think Manvantara is also saying that if you're a full-time Brahmana, for example, that's the only thing you do and you're getting donations, you can use that to maintain yourself as well.
Well, that's also Krishna's service to maintain the devotee. It is. And
yeah,
it's
like
up to
book distribution, right? Prabhupada said you could use book distribution to support yourself as well, right?
Well,
that's what I've heard.
It's up to, you know, we have to take responsibility about things. If you're doing book distribution and you're collecting some money for your own maintenance, you have to be very sure that your own maintenance, when people give you money, that they're making advancements. So your own maintenance is so that you can continue engaging in spiritual activities. It's very, you know, that's a very important point. Because what benefit will someone have? There's a lot of people who take advantage of that kind of thing. What benefit will someone have if they give a donation to someone who they think is saintly and that person's going to Disneyland or some, you know, not using it for progression in their spiritual life? Pati, could you add something to that?
I think you did fine. There's so many examples of people misusing donations and charity in the name of a religion and not using it in a religious way. So yes, but these Brahmins in Vedic culture and the Yadu dynasty, they're setting an example of a perfect Vedic society. And of course, in this day and age, that's very difficult to find.
It's difficult, but it's our responsibility to those who know about this, to give it to others and to live it ourselves.
I think Srila Prabhupada set up the whole society with a way that, like you said, not a farthing should be used for one's own purposes. Of course, we have to maintain, but that's part of the process. So if you're engaging whatever's given in the service of the Lord, then it's proper use of that activity, of that donation, whatever it might be.
Right. That's why we have to use our discrimination where we surrender, where we give our money, where everything. We have to use spiritual discrimination and make sure that we're dedicating our lives to the right thing, to the right person and the right purpose. Okay, is that okay, Manvantara? Does that satisfy your question, Manvantara? Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's go on with Elizabeth. You want to read the next slide? You have to unmute.
3:28. Thereafter, they offer the Brahmanas highly delicious foodstuffs, first offered to the personality of Godhead, and offer their respectful obeisances by touching their heads to the ground. They live perfectly by protecting the cows and the Brahmanas. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The behavior exhibited by the descendants of Yadu in the pilgrimage site of Prabhasa was highly cultured and exactly to the point of human perfection. The perfection of human life is attained by following 3 principles of civilization: protecting the cows, maintaining the Brahminical culture, and above all, becoming a pure devotee of the Lord. Without becoming a devotee of the Lord, one cannot perfect one's human life. The perfection of human life is to be elevated to the spiritual world, where there's no birth, no death, no disease, and no old age. That is the highest perfectional aim of human life. Without this aim, any amount of material advancement in so-called comforts can only bring the defeat of the human form of life.
Okay, go on reading.
Brahmanas and Vaishnavas do not accept any foodstuff which is not first offered to the personality of Godhead. Foodstuff offered to the Lord is accepted by the devotees as mercy of the Lord. After all, the Lord supplies all kinds of foodstuff, both to the human being and to the other animals. Both of them accept foodstuff, which are the remnants of sacrifice. Sacrifice is ultimately meant to satisfy the Yagya Purusha Vishnu. In Bhagavad Gita 3:13, it is said that one who accepts foodstuff as remnants of sacrifice is free from all sinful reaction. And one who cooks foodstuff for maintenance of his body takes in all kinds of sins, which lead only to suffering. The foodstuffs prepared by the Yadus and Pravasa pilgrimage sites to offer to the bona fide Brahmanas there were all offered to the personality of Godhead, Vishnu. The Yadus offer their sincere obeisances by touching their heads to the ground. The Yadus, or any enlightened families in Vedic culture, are trained for attainment of human perfection by total cooperation of service between the different divisions of social orders.
Okay, there's one more little paragraph that you can read, and then we'll have a little talk about prasadam. Could you
No,
change this
actually,
slide?
before we go on, no, I want to discuss this now.
Oh,
This,
sorry.
if you can. This point that Brahmins and Vaishnavas do not accept any foodstuff which is not offered first for the personality of Godhead is an important one. It's a foundational pillar. If anybody has the habit of eating things which are not first offered, please change that habit. Srila Prabhupada taught, following Krishna's instructions, everything. They don't accept any food stuff. It's so easy to offer food. Even if an apple, if you pick up an apple, just offer it to the Lord. It takes a second. It doesn't have to be an elaborate process if time and circumstance don't merit that. But please, please, please offer everything you eat all the time in your life. Okay, next.
Okay, that's very wonderful. Thank you. Very, very important instruction. Why don't you finish this up for us, Elizabeth, before we start a new chapter where Tisha will read.
The word Guruprasadam is also significant here. Hundreds of delicacies can be prepared simply by the combination of grains, vegetables, and milk. All such preparations are in the mode of goodness and therefore might be offered to the personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:26, the Lord accepts only foods which are within the range of fruits, flowers, leaves, and liquids, provided that they offer incomplete devotional service. Devotional service is the only criterion for a bona fide offering to the Lord. The Lord assures that he positively eats such foods offered by the devotees. So, judging from all sides, the Yadus were perfectly trained, civilized persons, and their being cursed by the Brahmana sages was only by the desire of the Lord. The whole incident was a warning to all concerned that no one should behave lightly with Brahmanas and Vaishnavas.
That is a self-explanatory again. Thank you. Pati, you want to go on to the next chapter now?
I'm not sure. We're getting pretty late. The next chapter starts now. I'm thinking maybe what we should do is stop here, and then I'll adjust the PowerPoint program next week so that we'll start at this beginning of the chapter, and we'll start with
Okay.
Tisha next week.
Okay, well, this
We went
is
a little long because of nice discussions.
yeah. So we can continue for just a little moment longer. This was a very important point about prasadam. We covered a lot of important points about reality and non-reality, sat and asat, and the difference between different kinds of devotees, and how Krishna displays his pastimes to teach us how we should act and what we should do in this world. So anyone have anything to add or say about any question about this? As we said before, you can spend your life, and we have to spend our lives, reading Prabhupada's books and discussing all these different things. Yes, Elizabeth.
So, like, we saw it is mysterious and it's, difficult to understand, the appearance and the pastimes and the disappearance of Lord Krishna. And, we see a lot that he is modeling, how to live life. And so, and it's, we are limited, like Faye Mataji was talking about, we're limited, we have limited senses, we have limited mind and memories. So it's very difficult to understand the Lord. And so to say why he does this in this way or why he does that in that way, it's, it's sort of like, oh, I want to understand God. So it's, it's a bit like a an achievable goal. But if you could clarify a little bit, any of you, on why he chooses to have that intoxication event, which is an activity that we, have as, one of the 4 principles, that would be really nice.
That's very interesting. Anyone have something to say? Pati, we had a
Yes.
long discussion
Yes.
about this.
Well, actually, by using that vehicle to end the dynasty, one of the lessons learned is the detrimental action, a result of intoxication. And even in our modern world right now, there's an opioid epidemic, practically speaking. Hundreds of thousands of people die in overdoses from drugs every year. So his using that technique, there had to be something. In other words, these people are demigods, advented on earth. They're the Lord's associates. It was mentioned earlier in the purport, material nature couldn't kill them. No other army could defeat them. So there had to be some means. And by enacting this as a particular Leela, it emphasizes totally the detrimental effects of intoxication, to the point where even these high cultured people destroyed themselves. So a person, even though high-born, even though very wealthy and intelligent or well educated, if intoxication comes into someone's life, it's not a good path. Not at all.
Another point is the internal conflict is destructive. Internal conflict. That was another thing that removed the Yadu dynasty from the planet. That within the family, within the unit, there was struggle, there was friction, there was arguing and fighting. So we should take that as a lesson to ourselves in all groups that we're involved in, mainly in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Prabhupada said, the way you can prove you love to me is to get along. So actually, sometimes that means even if you're right, just be wrong. Let someone else, it's not so important that we always have our will be done. We have to really, this everything that we're reading here is to help us give up false ego. But certainly
I think-
intoxication. What? Sorry?
Nothing. Chaitamayi also had her hand. up.
Chaitamayi, could you speak?
So one answer to that question that Elizabeth brought up is that perhaps Krishna was just trying to find a graceful way to get all these wonderful souls back to their original positions. He had to do it in a way that wasn't going to hurt anybody, and they just basically hurt their bodies, but their souls are immortal. So it was a quick and easy way for them to get transported. That's one idea. And if that's okay, I have another question about the purport of 26, which is referring to the going to places of pilgrimage, and how Narottam Das describes that going on pilgrimage is another bewilderment of the mind. And I'm having trouble digesting this, because so many of us put so much effort into getting on the plane and going to the place of pilgrimage. And here I'm reading that it's another bewilderment.
Okay.
And we should be, go ahead.
Yeah. There's different levels of development in Krishna consciousness. For neophyte devotees visiting, first of all, there's two reasons to go. For a neophyte devotee, going to the Dham is purifying, which is we want to get purified. So it's one of the main principles of bhakti, to go to the holy Dham and to become purified. When a pure devotee goes to the holy Dham, just like when a pure devotee goes to the temple and sees Krishna, it's a whole different experience. The divine love within his heart for Krishna naturally starts to awaken, and there's different. So in another instruction in that is, in going to the holy Dham, check your reason. If you're going to pray for material things or your own purification, and allow yourself to go through the different stages of development to the point of ecstatic love for Krishna. It's not that you shouldn't go to the holy Dham. Here we are. It's one of the 5 limbs of bhakti to go to the holy Dham, and now you hear, don't go.
Right.
The mentality must be understood. Pati, can you add to that, please?
Sure. Look at Srila Prabhupada's example. He left Vrindavan to go to perform a service for Krishna. Now, the example he's giving in Narottam Das Thakur did the same. Under the order of Jiva Goswami, Narottam Das went back to Keturi Gram and was preaching Krishna consciousness. Now, the point he's making is that he's engaged in a service, he's fully absorbed, everything is there. If all of a sudden he just decided, especially 500 years ago, where he couldn't just hop on a plane and go for a week, it would take him months. So just stop all things because I want to go take bath in the Jamuna. It's not a proper or efficient practical exercise to go to the holy Dham. But if he was to take his disciples and go on a holy pilgrimage and go to the different holy places and explain them. So again, just like Samapriya was pointing out, there are different reasons. A lot of people go to holy places also with some motive for becoming freed from sin or fulfilling a desire, such as those kinds of things. So we have to take it with a complete picture of what's being said and why it's being said.
Thank you so much.
Unmute.
Another important point is that Prabhupada says, when we go to the holy Dham, we must hear from the people who are residing there. We must hear, not that you just go to take bath, but you actually go to hear from the saintly people who are residing there, and ask them their realizations about the goal of life. This is the purpose of going to the holy Dham. And even if one cannot go to the Holy Dham, which is, as we said before, one of the 5 limbs of bhakti, in this day and age, it is recommended, the Yuga Dharma is to chant, because there are so many obstacles to so many other paths, even of purification. So, and of course, we went with Srila Prabhupada to the Holy Dham, but now we have this pandemic and people are not going. But you stay at home and you chant Hare Krishna. Take prasadam, read these books. It's very easy, and become ecstatic. Someone said something? Okay. There's also another, today there's a Harinam in St. Augustine. So where the devotees are there, it's a Christmas parade and everybody's chanting Hare Krishna together. And so I wish that I would be there, but this is my chanting Hare Krishna with you guys. So let us, whenever the opportunity arises, to chant Hare Krishna with japa. A lot of people don't understand the potency of japa. If you chant good japa, when you go into a kirtan, you fly above the material world. So this is an important thing, to always have the holy name as the goal of your life, and to dedicate your specific amounts of time during the day for chanting. And those times should grow as we get more of a taste for Krishna consciousness. Okay, so anyone else have something to say?
Thank you, Mata. That was
Hare
beautiful.
Anyone else, Madhurya?
I was going to say that I was actually very happy to read this section of how the Yadavas, they went to Prabhas and performed all those ceremonies and in the proper way, to the way beyond the necessity. So the drinking of the rice wine was not a frivolous thing. It wasn't like, oh, they just went to have fun there at a holy dham. But they did all the right things, and it was Krishna's desire that they become intoxicated and kill each other. But it also, Kshatriyas are allowed to drink, right?
Right.
They're allowed to drink. Right. So anyway, so I think it was nice to hear the beginning part, that they did all the proper things, and then this was the arrangement of the Lord.
Right. And if you remember, in the purport, it said mild. It was a mild,
yes, mild.
Right. So if they were Kshatriyas, so sometimes if they did drink something, so from a mild, like 1 or 2 cups of this mild wine, they get to the point of frenzy and killing each other. So whose influence is that? That's Krishna all the way, So
yeah, right.
This is quite an intense pastime. But anyway, thank you, everyone.
Tisha also rose her hand.
Tisha, sweetie, I'm sorry, darling.
That's okay. I just wanted to say, Samapriya Mataji, your enthusiasm kind of propels me forward in chanting holy name. So thank you for that.
I'm desperate. Go on, sweetie.
But the other thing is that, from my perspective, reading these pastimes kind of isolated by myself, and not having the ability to kind of talk it out, and just hear from other devotees, it just, it's contradictory. And so for me, I always was kind of going like with what they said, that I'm limited in my ability to understand what's the real story here, what's really happening. And I have to have a little bit of like a educated faith, and just not blind faith, but faith in just keeping, developing my love of Godhead, and developing myself to understand and get a true understanding of what's really happening here. Because even having this conversation, I don't fully understand how the Yadus, drank and had this fight and killed each other. It's very contradictory to me.
Right.
Can't say I understand it, but I do have faith that continuing on this path will help me gain the understanding.
Very, very good. I'll tell you a little secret. I've been doing this for before you were born, let's say. And it's a very difficult subject matter to understand, that particular Leela. But no matter, and a lot of people like Faye, she's there in Virginia, and we have and Elizabeth is, where are you, Elizabeth? Ohio, Wyoming, or Idaho?
I am in Iowa, Mataji.
Iowa. So I mean, there's a lot of people who are out there, and we started these classes. There were people from all over the world, places I didn't even know those places. I mean, you are eligible to be Krishna conscious and have faith that Krishna will ignite things within you. You just follow this process of hearing and chanting. You take advantage of this time that you're on your own to develop your hearing and chanting. And I mean, I'm no one to guarantee it. I can guarantee that will make you really Krishna conscious. That's what I can guarantee. And you will have an opportunity to associate with the devotees more. Krishna will arrange that for you. But hold on to this process. You're going to be okay, Tisha. Tisha just bought a place in Alachua, and once you come here, you are bombarded with a lot of devotees and the Holy Name Festival and everything else. So, but take advantage of this opportunity that you have. Even Guruprasadam, where are you located?
I am in New Taliban, Mississippi.
Oh, well, you're right there in the middle of devotees. That's wonderful. And is Ian, are you still there? I want to know where you are. He probably walked away.
Yeah,
Hey
I'm
there.
in Jamaica. I'm in Jamaica.
My darling, I'm coming to see you. No,
Okay.
no. But see, and we had people in Dubai, but here we are in Sangha, Sadhu Sangha. We have our own Sangha where we can chant and churn these wonderful pastimes of Krishna. So, and Chaita Mai, where are you, Chaita? Washington?
I'm in Talent, Oregon.
Oregon. You can get further away from Alachua. That's very far. So, but here we are, somehow or another, in this crazy Kali Yuga with the technology. We're all together chanting Hare Krishna, discussing the pastimes of Krishna. Don't lose hope. Just keep chanting and, keep reading Prabhupada's books and participating in this kind of Sangam, and everything is going to be perfect. Everything's going to turn out perfect. Thank you all. Hare
Mother,
Krishna. Yes.
Mother Samapriya.
Yes, Nali, I'm sorry. Where are you?
No, maybe one day you should also host a japa session for us.
Oh,
With all of us chanting together. That would be nice.
okay. We did one like that. We had a
did
japa
one.
workshop. Remember, were you there? Yeah.
I was not there.
Oh, you didn't join? You weren't at we had a
No.
japa workshop in Alachua, and we put it online too. So maybe we'll be able to do that. Everything takes energy, my darling.
Yeah.
Everything takes energy. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending. And I hope to see you again, and keep reading because the nectar is just right there. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Panchakalpatarubhyasya Kirtasamudhyasya
Vaishnav,
Vaishnav.
Vaishnav.
Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.